Good morning. Working on a little front door tag project. So I currently have a wreath up, and I'd like to put something a little more spring-like. And I'm feeling just really spring-like from a color scheme perspective today. Anyway, this is the club transfer for this month, so I'm thinking I'm going to use these two pieces. Basically, like put the barn here, and then say home underneath it. I don't think I'll use any of the actual other text. I do really like this Eat Local one, but I don't know, it seems a little small in font size for a door tag. Anyway, before we get into that, we do need to prep the surface a little bit. And I wanted to show you that because there's a couple options here. And I may do both sides at some point just to sort of show you the difference. Um, this is the 9x12 door tag, and it's essentially MDF with a finish on it. So this wood grain thing is a faux finish. And I do like that it comes with corner protectors, especially on the bottom where it'd be really noticeable. You can see here on this side, this got a little banged up, which I mean, for like a distress thing, it doesn't matter, but I'm going to use the side that is less banged up. And I haven't waxed one of these before, but generally the suggestion is if it is a non-porous surface a single-use surface, like wood, that it's best to wax it to kind of get a smoother surface. Like if you run your finger against this, you can hear that it's kind of a little rough. So I'm going to get a little wax on my cloth. This is like a mini fuzzing cloth, essentially, where it's fuzzy on one side and then more microfibery on the other. And I'm just going to add a little bit until the surface is coated, because you're not trying to really like make a mess of it, you're mostly just, let's get a little more wax than we were getting. Yeah, there we go. You're basically sort of like with pasting, you're trying to sort of cover with wax, and then you're gonna buff it off, and then you're gonna hit it with some heat to basically make sure it melts and sinks into all the crevices. And you can also kind of see with the wax that you get a sheen when the wax is on. It's a little harder to see on white. If you were doing it on other things, it's less hard. And I know folks like Ken just don't wax anything, and really I'm less worried about this top where I'm not really going to put anything. But yeah, so you can feel, this is essentially paraffin, so you can really sort of feel like it's a waxed surface when you're done. And it took a little bit. If you've ever done any canning and are familiar with paraffin, this smells identical. So now I'm going to go over to the other side and buff it out a little to just sort of remove any excess wax I might have. And there we go. See, we got a good bit off. And I will just store this right in the container because it's just perfectly sized for that. And I'm going to grab a heat tool. This is a Ranger Heat It that is pretty warm, but is like, not hot enough to do like embossing or, in this case, set the wax on fire. But as you can see, as it heats up, like you can really see the wax get a lot more shiny as it heats up. The idea here is this helps it sort of sink into all the crevices. So if you see any areas that seem like, a little too waxy, you can always go back once it's in a warmer state and rebuff it. I see some sort of streaky bits in the middle I want to just hit this with again. Whilst it is in a more liquid state. Yeah, I mean, you could see almost immediately how it mats out as I hit it with my little cloth. you don't want like a thick layer of wax. The idea here is just that the wax basically allows your transfer to not stick. It also helps with the actual fine detail. Um, the issue with a less smooth surface is that you're going to have areas that just don't stick. Like if you think of a wood grain, there's going to be stuff in the middle of the wood grain that it's just not going to like stick as well as it would. And now that this is heated and I don't see anything that looks like, oh my god, there's lots of wax. They're basically good, and I really like this tool because as you can hear, it's pretty quiet, but it also has a low fan speed, so like if you're working with, I don't know, something like glitter, it's not going to blow it all over the house, which is nice. So this is still shiny, so I will let this cool before we start working with it, and whilst that is happening, I will cut up the transfer, and we can talk a little bit about colors. I can find where this opens. At the top. Weird. For some reason I thought these opened at the bottom. That must be somebody else's packaging. Anyway, it's nice. You get your instructions on the back as well, but you know what we are doing. So I am just going to get rid of that because we're using these. This Home Sweet I don't think I'm going to use. It's cute, but I don't know. It doesn't really, it's not quite my style. There we go. Stuff we don't need is the way, and you can kind of tell, like you're basically waiting for this thing to cool off. You can see the wax has gone back to being matte, so we're probably okay. If you run your hands over it, it feels a lot like waxed paper, essentially, which is kind of the idea. Now I'm gonna probably not use a light pad for this because it wouldn't help, because obviously wood is not very, what's the word I'm looking for? Wood is not a surface which you can write through, or see through. I mean, it's non-porous, not non-porous, but non-translucent. Opaque even, one might say. Looking for a Sharpie, because I always forget to mark what the top is, and we'll say home on this one, and we'll say home barn on this one, and then we'll be in a better place to get them put back together. I always kind of miss that, but you know. So I guess the question is, do you like the home? I like the home at the top or the bottom better. I like it at the top, I think, just because it seems more, like this part seems square and it seems in the center. So I'm going to place that first. I'm going to fuzz this a bit because obviously it's new, because we just took it off, so that we can, you know, make this a little less sticky. That seals pretty good. I think that looks good to me. Depending on, the other thing you can do if you have a grid pad like this is this kind of helps you more understand how to line it up. And this is not, the wax also makes it, you know, waxy, so it's not as stuck down as you would think it would be. which might be good or bad depending on how you feel about it. If you're more of a I want it to stay put a kind of person with stencils, you could simply fuzz it less. I'm going to pick this guy up because it looks not straight. Now, that looks pretty good to me. And I've been really loving this. I mean, the barn itself I want to do in red, but I've really been... Oh, this is the wrong color. Hang on. I have been really enjoying Shimmer Eucalyptus lately, which of course oh my. There we go. So I think this will look like a really interesting color combo, because it won't be just sort of what you'd expect. So I'm probably going to do this top section first, and then detail of the barn roof, and then go down and just do the barn in Candy Apple Red, which is a very red. I'm actually going to mix up this red because it is brand new before we get too far. Start pasting, because I don't think I'm going to have a pretty, this is not going to be a super detailed sort of thing, so I mean I think it'll be pretty straightforward. And you're going for sort of a frosting / yogurt consistency, which this is. And I will, this guy's pretty mixed because it's been used fairly recently, but I really like the shimmer in this, and I think it would be, I don't know, it seems kind of a spring color to me. You can just sort of I used this in that wiring can card that I really liked how that came out. Anywho. And put some paste in. You can already kind of see it shimmering, so I'll put down that much, then grab a squeegee and see how this works out. I think this may be enough. You know, I don't know. I still am not super great at judging like how much paste is enough. And you know, you want to kind of be careful. With this waxed, it's definitely less stuck down than it would be otherwise, so trying to be a little careful to not, like, do that. As long as some of the transfer stays down, you're generally okay. If the whole thing pulls up, it's kind of a problem. So, you know, similar to, like, stamping, as long as you have something down, you're pretty okay. I'm going to scrape up the excess, make sure that E's okay. I do want a little bit of this. Maybe I'll grab a little on my... I don't feel that confident today. What I'm going to do is grab a more detailed tool to do this. Because I want to do the roof here, but I don't want to. Oops. The barn itself I want to keep red, so we're trying to be a little careful, you know. And, you know, these things can move around. And you really want to get the paste right on the edge of these squeegees because the rest of it kind of doesn't matter. It's sort of like a palette knife in that sense. And I'm going to sort of scraping the excess as I go. Here's one area here that's pretty excessive. I just want to anything messy off my tool because it's very close to the edge and I would prefer to not mess up the edge. Yeah, there we go. Just sort of pushing paste down into the transfer just to make sure it's fully saturated because it looked a little not cool. Looked like it needed a little more, I guess, is what I'm saying. The rest of the barn won't be quite as like detailed because it's basically just make it red. Here I'm just being more careful because we don't have a lot of like there's not a ton of wiggle room here. But you do have, you know, the whole rest top part of the transfer you can mess with. I mean, like if you get paste there, it's not a big deal. So that's kind of I'm trying to use that to my advantage and to not get any weird glops anywhere I don't want it. I think we're good there. So now I'm just gonna get some of this excess off, starting from here. I always want to basically get this back in the jar so it's not you're not wasting it. You can really start to see just how shimmery this stuff is as you get lighter coats of it. It's there. I'll just clean off my hands and my tool a little bit, and I will get more paste on my hands apparently. But I'll grab some of this red and get a good bit of red down. That's probably okay. I'm going to grab a new squeegee because it will make life a lot easier, and I'm basically you can see as I was being a little aggressive, maybe you can't anymore, but the bottom here actually started to lift off, so I guess we'll see in a minute, but my guess is because the green was down first, it's going to, like the odds of these two blending are pretty low, so I'm just gonna do this with the squeegee itself and Hope I don't regret that decision later. And we can get off any extra paste. This looks like we got a little over the line here. Not a big deal. This, because it's chalk paste, it comes off with water. So I think we have. I'm not seeing much of anything. I guess up here there's a little bit. I think that's pretty good. So let's see what we can see and how this came out. So I don't think I need the detail tool to get under this because of the wax. Yeah. And it is, so part 1 looks very good. And we'll see how part 2 came out. Oh, that came out perfect. There's a little dot there I may do something with. Let me go right. We are back to show you a couple things. One, I'm going to take some of the water on my hands here and just try to get rid of this, which I was not successful at because this is a really pigmented color. So what I am going to do is find my white. So I think I can just sort of airbrush over this essentially. These are not my open white. I have a couple of different whites for different purposes, so that's why this seems a little. Oh well, I'm not sure where that went. Use the one here. Ah, here we go. Okay, so let me just grab a little white on my finger and paint it out. I'm going to kind of do the same thing here because you can see that there's like, it's sort of obvious that you're doing it, but I'm just going to sort of blend it out so it looks a little more intentional. And there goes the red. Because this stuff does layer kind of like acrylic paint, and we can pretend it's a barn in the snow. And I'm going to grab a little more and layer it over the actual red area, and then there we go. Like how that looks. This also dries super fast if you're using your finger, just FYI. There's a little speck of green here. I think I'll leave that one alone. I mean, well, I don't know. Yeah, a little speck of green. You can. The other thing you can do is sort of, whoops. You can wait for this to fully dry, and then you could use something like the pointy end of the detail tool, and you could just scrape it off, and not have to deal with all the stuff that I just did. But I really like how this came out, so I'm happy with this. It should dry quickly. I like the sparkle. since my plan is to put this outside, I'm probably going to hit it with some kind of clear coat, just to make it a little more waterproof, because it does rain in the spring in Wisconsin. So I am going to put the lid on my paste. I have a couple tools to clean up that I didn't grab earlier. And let's take a look at our transfers. Find the home. It's not that one. This one. This is still a little damp, so I think I'll wait. The one I wanted to show you is the barn, which you can see the red like stained the transfer quite a bit, but it doesn't impact how well it works. And then here's the front side. You can see some of the mica and the red you just can't get off after you use them, but it doesn't impact how it works. And as this dries down, you can see how the red is a lot more matte than the eucalyptus. And like a lot of the transfers have all these little like distress marks in them. You can kind of see it in the barn. Maybe let me just get a little more up close here. You can see that those are not oopsies. Those are in there by design. Just as an FYI, because I know I've seen some and I've been like, oh, did I do something weird? And no, it's just designed to look a little slightly wonky. Clean up my tools. Our tools are ready to go for next time. You can see that like the red even stains. Oops, I missed a spot, but like it even stains the squeegees a little bit. So it doesn't impact how it works, just impacts how it looks. Anyway, until next time, folks. Thanks for watching.